the European season is up and running. We've been to Jerez, one of the great events and circuits on the MotoGP calendar in world motorsport. And can someone let me know? I mean, I went to Jerez many, many years ago. I want to say 2014. And with it being Spain, after the race on the Sunday, I was very confused because there was no public transport, like buses, shuttles, anything running from the circuit back to town. So it was just like 100, there was, over the weekend, I think they said 200 something thousand. Or was that for the day? I mean, I don't know. They put the attendance up. When I was there was like 100,000 there on the day. But all those people just having to get back to town with no public transport. I went to like the bus stop, and because like generally like in Spain, it's like, oh, the buses to here don't run on a Sunday. Like, great, but it's race day. And they were like, we don't care. They just, as per, they don't run on Sundays. The bus drivers don't work Sundays. So tell me if it's still the same. And so I ended up sharing a taxi with like 3 Italian guys back into town. That was very kind of them to offer me a seat. But the wait for taxis is obviously ridiculous. The traffic getting out of there. Is that why like the car park's so full there? Everyone has to drive because you can't get home any other way? Like, I don't really... Maybe I was on the wrong side of the circuit. Maybe there were shuttles going from the other side. Someone let me know. Do they run public transport these days from the circuit to town on a Sunday at Jerez? Because when I was there, I had no luck. I was like, am I going to have to walk all the way back? It's not a close distance, But yeah, these 3 lovely gentlemen helped me out that day. But yeah, just a little bit of a question for you guys. If anyone's been to Jerez recently or was there this weekend, let me know. Okay, let's talk about bikes. Alex Marquez, your new championship leader and first-time race winner in MotoGP, or Grand Prix winner in MotoGP. Is this what we expected from Alex, to pick up a Grand Prix win this season in exactly this fashion? We expected it in Kota, but he got done on the day by Pecco, where he wasn't there to pick up the pieces, so to speak. But this week he was, and I tell you what, he was very much risked. Was it the first lap when he threaded the needle between Marc and... Was it between Fabio and Pecco? Anyway, he came in like a wrecking ball and almost skittled a few of them, settled, and just cracked on with his day. But I guess, that's the main talking point. Or is it Marc again? Let's give it to Alex this time. I know it's kind of Marc again is the main discussion, but let's give it to Alex as the main talking point of the weekend. But before we we're going to talk about Marc's crash. We're going to talk about Alex, of course. We're going to talk about sprint races. We're getting back into that. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about Moto2 and Moto3 later on, as well as the All Japan Cup and Fantasy MotoGP. As always, chaptered below, skip ahead to whatever you like. We're going to start with Fabio, even though we can talk about him later in the All Japan Cup, but he's elevated himself above the All Japan Cup this week to have his own little discussion point just by taking a pole position, which I think, I was fired up after that, I've got to say. Proper fired up, because this guy is one of the proper elites. And sometimes people can argue about like who are the top guys. Pecco, I know there's always a question mark with Pecco because how did he manage to lose a world championship last season? So it's like it puts doubt in your mind. Martin, world champion now. He's your current reigning and defending. And he's done it on a satellite team. So it's like he's super elite, but then it's like, is he there with like, is he like an A and not an A+? Do you know what I mean? I think Fabio is one of your A+, top of the tree. I know Marc elevates himself, is an A++, isn't he? But he's different because you're talking about one of the all-time greats rather than just like one of the greats in the series at the time. But Fabio is one of those guys that I have up there in the A+ category, definitely. Shows his quality here. And obviously binned it in the sprint, trying to win it effectively, I'd say, on the second lap, yeah. And Marc obviously does his thing, but just getting the pole and then doing what he did on Sunday to pick up second place and to just straight up on the road, dry conditions, man versus man to beat Pecco Bagnaia. We need to talk about Pecco as well because it's slightly worrying, but just the quality of Fabio. He's only finished a second and a half off the lead. If we can do that more often, he'll score a lot of podiums this season. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. Fabio Quartararo, brilliant. Pole position, deserved it. Now, Alex Marquez, we briefly discussed him a little bit there. When he settled in and Marc went down, did you have him winning the race? Like instantly? I can't say I was 100% confident, but I was like, he's probably going to win this now. He just looks so much more, I don't know how to put it. But how is that happening with Pecco, right? We'll bring Pecco into it. it's super worrying that this lad, who in the past, I mean, I'd written him off in the past, Alex, because how can I put this? It just never looked like he was going to reach that level, did it? I mean, some people did back him in, and fair play to those people. They saw something there that, I didn't see, and a lot of us didn't see. But it's just so confident. Like it's like he knows that he's not going to beat Marc probably one-on-one almost ever. Maybe he'll have a day where one-on-one Marc isn't at his absolute best, and he maybe can beat him in a scrap. But it's like he knows, right? But he also knows nobody else is beating him. He knows there's not really much of a threat from Pecco. He can see him off. Not really like it's a problem for him. He just looks supremely confident, and it looks like the bike underneath him is doing exactly what he needs it to do all of the time. It's actually remarkable. Like, where's it come from? Is it a little bit... How much of an advantage is it, do you think, being Marc Marquez's brother? And I'm not talking about he gets opportunities because he's Marc's brother. I don't think that's the case. Maybe when he got the Honda ride, I think Marc maybe pulled a string or two, to end up on a Repsol Honda. I mean, since that one move, I don't... because you could have seen him go into an LCR, but maybe not a factory ride. But anyway, not the point. Other than that, I don't think any opportunity's ever been given to him for being Marc's brother. Do you understand what I mean? But does the advantage of being Marc's brother come into it? Like, maybe they share a few tips. Maybe Marc goes to him, no, you see, when you're going in like that, that's not going to work. I do it like this. And I know Marc does things that no one else on the bike can do, but maybe little things that maybe they do have a chat, stuff that he can replicate. They talked about, like, in the briefing, the little car ride after the sprint, Pecco going, I tried to do turn 7 like Marc, and boom. But maybe other than stuff like that where Marc's an absolute freak show and no one can emulate him, like through the left-handers, the fast left-handers or whatever. Maybe there are little bits and pieces where he goes, nah, maybe even setup. I mean, you don't know if they're sharing all this stuff. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're keeping it completely professional. And like, no, you're not going to learn anything that you wouldn't have learned if, say, it was Pecco and Martin in this position instead of me. But maybe there is a little bit, maybe they chat sometimes and he goes, yeah, you need to start doing this, you need to start doing that. I can't think of how else he's just turned a corner like this. It's a remarkable change of circumstance for Alex Marquez, because he was by far and away, for me, when there was 8 Ducati riders, I had him in my bottom 2 probably my bottom 2 those last couple of seasons. In terms of talent, maybe bottom 3, maybe I'm being harsh. Can't remember exactly who was in those seats. Behind, well, you could argue with Frankie being out of form the way he was for a good few years. He maybe was ahead of him, but I always saw Frankie as the Frankie that, kind of what we're getting now. But Alex is elevated beyond that. Like, that's where it's strange. And whereas you maybe had them, even Digi, I thought Digi maybe was a bit of a flash in the pan. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. He was certainly behind Marc, Pecco, Jorge, Bez. I had him behind Bez and Bastianini. So, and now all of a sudden, like, you couldn't dream of them doing better than him in this situation. Like, if they were all stayed on Ducati for another year and they're all on a 2024 bike, are they getting anywhere near Alex now? It's hard to say they would. Strange circumstances, I suppose. I don't know what's happened. Something's clicked for him. I guess sometimes that happens. Something just happens where this 24 bike really suits him down to the ground. And maybe he'll get on the 25 next season if he doesn't end up on a factory bike. Or maybe he does and he's on the 26 bike, but whatever. And maybe that won't click for him. Like what's happening with Pecco at the moment. Something's just not there. And are you worried, Pecco fans? Are you worried? I mean, you should be, because he's got to be beating Fabio there. And it just gets to a point in the races. I mean, how much of this... I mean, there's a deeper conversation here about, like, following other bikes and stuff. And I know that's not a huge excuse, because Alex Marquez showed you can still catch and pass someone if you're genuinely quicker than them. And he did. And it's fine. But if it's the kind of thing where you're like, well, if him and Quartararo were just cracking laps in a time trial opposite ends of the circuit from one another, Pecco lapping quicker in that exact same scenario, I'd say probably, although it's hard to say that he would. But is it just like you get stuck behind someone for so many laps to the point where it's like you can't close the gap and then you end up having to fall away a little bit. So I wonder if it's almost like an F1 thing. Like you just see guys and they're like, I can't get closer and now I've got to fall away. God, it's grim at the moment, isn't it, with some of this? Marc's crash. Is this going to be the tale of the season? At what point does Marc just settle down and go, I've won this world championship by about 100 points if I don't try and win that race? Now, I know we're all thinking it. If he just stays on he probably does win that race because he settles in. He definitely has the pace to go past Bagnaia and Quartararo, even with the front tyre pressure, dirty air thing going on, because his late rate pace every single race has been absolutely phenomenal. So you know that he's absolutely going past them 10 laps to go, whatever, and he starts to chug along and maybe he catches Alex and he probably beats him, I mean, this has always been the anomaly with Marc, where it's like, I think of this as a criticism if you want, but no rider's perfect. But Marc's weakness always seems like it's between the ears. I'm not saying he's weak mentally, but I'm just saying he just lacks a bit of I don't want to say common sense in some of these situations where it's like, mate, if you just stay on there, first of all, I know it's easy to say, it's like, just don't crash. He's not trying to crash, but is he pushing it to a level at that stage of the race that he absolutely does not need to risk going that quick through that corner? He closed that gap he was going so quick, and someone who's, maybe people who are a bit more experienced than me in terms of actually riding a bike quickly can tell me what that feeling is, where what happened there. Is he still trail braking there, or is that the release of the front brake, unloading the front? Which one is that? Is it still trail braking and then he's going so quick that it's just carrying too much speed through there? Which one is that? But anyway, at that point in the race, maybe he knows he can make up time in that corner, so he's going to try and do it now. Does he have to do it now? It's a long race. He could easily settle in and still be third with 10 laps to go and still win that race. He can. He has that luxury because he knows he's that much quicker. And you know what? At the end of the day, if you don't manage to win that race and you come second or third, I'm not sure that really matters. Just, he could do that. And I get at this point of the season, he can maybe afford to take those kind of risks. And maybe if it was 3 or 4 races to go and he still finds himself in this situation where he's only 25 points ahead, 23, 22 points ahead, and if he crashes and Alex wins the race or whatever, he loses the championship lead. Maybe in that situation, he just sort of settles down. And now he's thinking to himself, well, I can take the risks this early in the season because I'll make the points back up. But a part of you just sort of thinks to yourself, just don't do that. Just don't do that there. It's Pecco last season. The amount of times where he could have just come third, fourth, second, third, fourth, and won the World Championship quite comfortably and crashed instead. It's the same thing. So maybe it's a Ducati thing. Maybe it's there like that. If you are pushing that much, and you see it with Marc now, you can risk dropping it somewhere. But tell me what you think, because is there a genuine fear amongst the Marquez contingent out there that this could be a recurring theme and the title race could be extremely tight come the end of it? I still don't think that's the case, but when you think about Marc doing this, how confident are you that Marc's just not going to keep doing that? I mean, he's done it his whole career, so why would he stop now? And I know it's one of those things with the wisdom of experience and age, you'd expect him to stop doing that by now, but he clearly is never ever going to stop, win or bin kind of guy. So is there an extremely weird circumstance where he leaves this as a tight battle coming into the last 3 or 4 rounds? So where I will give Pecco credit, even though it does look like he maybe is in a bit of a struggling place, if he's going to get anything out of Marquez, if he's going to get anything out of Marc at all, that's what he has to do. He needs to be like Rossi, Laguna Seca. It has to be that every single time. If you can get anywhere near him on that first couple of laps, you've got to almost make contact with him every time. And we did see them make contact. From the front angle, it looks like Marc comes across a bit, but when you watch the onboard from whoever was behind, Alex behind them, they do sort of go into one, don't they? I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that contact. I enjoyed that scrap. I thought, is that Pecco just making him have to make one more overtake part of the reason he does crash? Because if he's ahead of Pecco there and he's in second and he's comfortable and he only sees Fabio ahead of him, maybe he doesn't feel the need to take that kind of risk. But it's that thing with like when you watch tennis, right? And you see the kind of players like Novak, and he gets across the court so brilliantly that sometimes you think you've won the point, but he makes you play one extra shot, and then he makes you play one more, where he just gets to things he shouldn't get to, and then all of a sudden you've lost the point. And I feel like that's how Pecco has to play every single race from now on. You've got to make him make one more overtake than he should have to make. If he goes past you, just dive bomb him. make it dangerous if you have to. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but what I'm saying is if you want to get anything out of Marc Marquez this season, that's what you have to do. And to be fair, Alex needs to do it as well. And I'd like to see him a little bit hard, because there was a point there where he was in third and Alex was behind him, and you'd think maybe, I'm not saying he's not doing it because his brother, maybe he wouldn't do it to anyone, Alex, in that situation. But when it's Marc Marquez and you're trying to win the world championship, I know he's your brother, you've got to do a pass, you need to do a Rossi Gibernau on him into that last corner, but I'll do it on like lap 2. Like, you've got to, otherwise he just wins every race. And because Pecco made him make one extra pass, he crashed. You know, he again, we don't know what would have happened if he was maybe he would have crashed anyway, chasing down Fabio there. But instead of having to get past Pecco. But because he was lining up a move, quick through that left-hander to line up a move into the next one, he's dropped it. Now, if that's free air in front of him and Pecco's and Fabio's a little bit down the road, maybe he doesn't feel the need to do that. You've got to make him make one extra pass. You've got to make him play the extra shot. Now, sprints. I've got here, sprints suck now. And the reason it sucked is because Marc got to the front early. Now, the only difference is if Marc doesn't get to the front early, we get a good race. And when I say good race, I mean it's good for like 5-6 laps until they sort themselves out. But the battles are early, you know. Now, there's a nuanced conversation because the sprints could suck only because Marc gets to the front. And if Marc doesn't get to the front, he has to work his way through, which makes the race exciting. Also, sprints kind of suck because of the fact that they find it a bit harder to follow and pass each other now with the way the bikes are. So I put this to you that maybe there is a place for sprint races in MotoGP, even though I've said this before on the channel many, many times. Whilst I enjoy watching the sprints, and we have had good sprint racing in the past, basically when last season or the year before when there wasn't really a standout kind of rider, everyone was kind of a bit closer. But now with Marc stretching the field, you get what I'm saying. But while the bikes find it this hard to follow each other, and we're not going to get good sprints anyway, and I've always said I don't need sprint races to enjoy the weekend. Whilst I do enjoy them when they're good, and I enjoy watching extra racing, I'm a traditionalist. I like to see it just practice, qualify, race. That's just me. Everyone will have their own opinion on that. As the pinnacle of the sport, like experiment with other categories. You don't experiment with the big boys. This is the purest stuff. It doesn't have to be. That's just my point of view. But while the bikes are struggling so much just to pass each other, and then all it is we're getting a procession on a Saturday and then a procession on a Sunday. So what's the point? There's danger of oversaturation. You can have too much of a good thing, I think, personally. Like this thing where you start getting 25 races in a season, 25 Grand Prix in a season. I don't need that. I like it when it's like 18 race season, because it makes you look forward to it more. You can't miss one because there's only a few of them. 16 to 18, 19 races. I think that's perfect because it makes you want it more, and there is a danger of oversaturation. And when you get oversaturation and the racing's really exciting on a Saturday, who cares? Like, everyone's going to be looking forward to it. It's fine. But when the racing's boring, there's a real danger that you turn people away from it because they're like, I don't need to see it. I'll watch the highlights and just check the results. Done. And then MotoGP won't post the highlights until June. So can we do away with them for another year until we change the regulations? Can we just do away with them for next season because we don't need them? Let me know in the comments. And look, we're going to go to the All Japan Cup now. Before we do, I don't think I expressed enough how great it was seeing the post-race scenes. Alex Marquez, the celebrations, the Spanish people down in Andalusia, wonderful part of the world, really enthusiastic people, and they were incredible scenes. I say I really did enjoy seeing the celebrations, and it's wonderful to see. Lots of enthusiasm for the sport and for when somebody else gets a win sometimes. Great. All Japan Cup. The Yokozuna himself, Fabio Quartararo, rises to the occasion and takes the win. By a long way. We've spoken about how good Fabio is earlier in the video. I don't need to go on anymore. Exceptional bit of Grand Prix riding there from Fabio Quartararo. That's how it's done, ladies and gentlemen. Luca Marini, second. He's making a move. 10th in the race. Let me see. I almost say this every single week. If you're Honda, right, and I know we know the direction Honda will go in, but if you're Honda, and let's say for next season you're only keeping one of these two, at what point do you start going, I know Mir's quicker, and I know there's more potential upside to Mir as a world champion, But you can also be like, I mean, I know they've got deep pockets, Honda, but you can also be like, well, we can pay Marini probably less than half the amount as someone who can't demand a lot because he's not a world champion. And the bike finishes every week. The bike just finishes the race. He finishes. And in the top 10 here. Now, Mir, I think, was running, I think maybe he was in the Acosta battle. Acosta Binder 6th, 7th. So the potential upside with Mir is higher if you can get him to finish the race. But at what point? Because we know give him a pass, Mir, because that last couple of years on the Honda, it's been horrible. So you can be like, yeah, he crashed a lot because the thing was almost unrideable. I get it. But now that it's proving to be quite a rideable machine, Johann Zarco's getting a lot out of it. Marini is finishing every race. Aleix here does a decent job, comes 17th. What happened there? Because I feel like he was higher up than that until the end. Like, I thought he was about to get a point. Did he get a tyre pressure thing? What's happened there? Because he's finished a long way off. I'm going to have to do a bit of research here, lads and gals. 16-second penalty for Aleix Espargaro. So he would have finished probably ahead of Bez. So my point is, the bike is certainly competitive enough, not against Ducati, but against all the other bikes. And a lot of guys are finding it easy to stay on it, and Mir is still crashing it. So at what point is it like, I'd rather just have Marini? He doesn't bin it every single week. So anyway, we're going through the All Japan Cup. So Marini's second, Zarco's third. Not his best weekend. I expected a little bit more from him, especially after Friday, because he was well and truly nestled himself in the top 10 on after practice Friday. After that, we had Rins, who's still just collecting points, but the pace isn't there. I think is he at the out of contract at the end of the season? Maybe not, because I've heard no talk about that seat. All I've heard talk about is Honda trying to lure Acosta or Toprak, but no word of Yamaha trying to do similar. So maybe Rins does have another year. Be interested to know, because that's a seat that's up for grabs. Because Rins, as much as I've liked him in the past, as much as I thought he's a pure race win quality guy, it's just not happening anymore. Too many injuries, I think. It's getting on. Sometimes you turn up one year and, you ask footballers and stuff like that, your legs just don't go anymore. Maybe that's what's happened to him. Too many injuries and too many years riding through injuries. Who knows? But he's finished fourth there, the All Japan Cup. He's still just racking up the points though. So again, that's what Mir's not doing. Just stay on if you have to. Although Mir has been a lot quicker. Augusto Fernandez, 5th. Aleix Espargaro, 6th. Gets an All Japan Cup point, Aleix. Good boy. Just by finishing, even though he would have picked up more points. He would have been ahead of Augusto Fernandez, wouldn't he? So he's lost a point there probably. But DNFs for Mir. Jack Miller had a technical issue by the look of it. And Chantra, because, I mean, who really cares? Now, the championship standings. Johann Zarco is still top of the leaderboard. Forgot to call him that just before. Johann Zarco is still top of the leaderboard, 34 points. He has a 10-point lead over Luca Marini, who is just... You can't beat that kind of reliability. Fabio Quartararo goes to third. Now, this is where does he start making his move now? He's only 11 points behind. Another win. If Zarco's not right on it, it's back in business, isn't it? The Yokozuna himself, the champion. Jack Miller, pointless, goes to fourth now, drops down. He's on 18 points. Alex Rins, 13 points. Mir on 6 points. He's been stuck on 6 points for bloody ages. Augusto Fernandez goes to 4 points. Chantra still on 3. Miguel Oliveira, obviously, still on 3. Aleix Espargaro, welcome, is on 1 point. It's good when they get a point, because we get to keep talking about them. MotoGP Fantasy. Now, I messed up this week. I messed up a little bit. Well, kind of. Basically, I got rid of VR46 to get Grassini in. Good move. Race win. I also got rid of Iagura because I was like, maybe it's at that point now where the early enthusiasm for I and the way he was performing was quite good. But it's obviously going to settle a little bit as we start to chug along in the season. And then Zarco and Quartararo and guys like that are starting to find a little bit. So I was tossing up. I got rid of, it's only a silver rider position. It's only half points anyway, but points are points. So I got rid of I, and I tossed up between Zarco and Fabio. It honestly, was like a coin toss. And at the end, I went for Zarco. I've left points definitely on the table here because I knew that Fabio was definitely going to have a good weekend based on his Friday. But then I thought, what if I don't have room to make another change for next week to get Fabio out if he's not performing well. The Honda looks a little bit better at the moment, and Zarco's been so consistent that I was like, even if he does finish behind Fabio this week, it won't be by much. I didn't think. In my head. And then Fabio puts it on pole, second in the Grand Prix. Zarco's really nowhere to be seen all weekend, so I really messed that one up. But I still had Marc in there, and I had Pecco, obviously. Didn't make any changes there. So what did I get this week? I got 135 points, which is all right, but it's not great. I have dropped down. You guys are all catching me. Now, it wasn't a huge point scoring round because of Marc, so we didn't all lose too much ground, but the guys killing at the top are still the guys killing at the top. Not much change in the top 10. Kiss My Assin, Joseba Inaki 13, JJD80, favourite of the channel, of course, had a great score this weekend. I wonder did you use a boost? Or did you already run out? Because you've got none left now. Factory Ducati team, 4th. Team Nolly, 5th. Roller Acosta, great name, as always. 6th, Ilarinesi, 7th. Pedro Acosta Coffee, 8th. Redline Nate, 9th. HE93, 10th. Is that the same as last week? I think we've got no changes. And can we just appreciate a few of the names we've got if you go a little bit further outside the top 10? Team Motosexual Wes. We've got Moto Timing in here. That'd be Rob from Moto Timing. Everyone go jump on that website because that's what I watch at work when I'm in for sessions and I'm working on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I love to have a Moto Timing on my computer. Combat Wombat, that's a good one. There's one that's just 4, which I quite like the simplicity of it. No, that's how we stand at the moment. Let me know what changes you made, what you should have done. You can see where I messed up this week. I'm just having a mare. I'm going in the wrong direction at every opportunity, even though I think my calculations are quite measured. It just isn't working out for me at the minute, but we'll see how we get on going forward. Your big scorer this weekend was Alex. You kind of needed to have him. Moto2, bit of a procession from Manu Gonzalez. Too good, too fast. Don't touch him. Nice little battle behind though. Barry Baltus, Center Aegis, Moreira had a nice little tussle in there for those last podium places. And Barry Baltus, very good. He's looking a lot better in that team than what he ever did before. We have seen him do this before, but he seems a bit more consistent this season. Center Aegis is going to start chugging along now. I think this is his level now. I think he'll be on the podium a lot more throughout the season. Moreira, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Dennis Onchu, podium the last race. And then now he's followed it up with a 5th place here, and his pace seems good. I'm hoping this is sustained for him now because I don't want to see him start to drop off now like a little flash in the pan, 1 or 2 races here and there. Can he keep going here? Struggles this weekend, Aaron Canet and Jake Dixon, your other title challengers. Jake Dixon was an interesting one because they were so off it that, and when I say that, I mean, he still did start 7th or something? Still did start 9th, right? So not ridiculously off it, but not on it either. But it was interesting to hear him already defeated before the Grand Prix on the grid. He wasn't chirpy at all, which he is a lot of the time. But he's just already not happy. He's like, we're going to use this as a test because we're just through a setting at the bike just to have a go. I mean, it was a bit strange. I mean, he's ended up finishing, as a salvage job, not bad. If you're just literally like, I'm testing. He's finished 9th. He started 9th. Whatever. Salach in the same boat. And then Canet, just a bit of a struggle this weekend, but it's left the standings very interesting because Manu Gonzalez takes over the lead once again. Canet and then Dixon. Dixon's left himself a bit astray here with his crash last time out. And look, I do want to be fair with a few of these guys because am I wrong in saying the Bosco Scura just did not look there at all for any of their teams this weekend? Like, who was the highest Bosco Scura? It doesn't tell you the fucking bikes on here when you look at this results. I'm struggling to remember which team runs what. Vietti, I think, would be a Bosco Scura on that chassis, on that bike, wouldn't it? I think that's a Bosco Scura bike. He's 7th. They just weren't there this weekend. So, it seemed to me anyway. So they struggled a little bit, a lot of these Bosco Scura lads. So I'm trying to get comfortable here. Been sitting down for a long time now. Moto3. This was pretty good in terms of it was something a bit different. Rueda, exceptional to break them when he did. Nice little fight from Kelso. I thought he was really strong in the early phases of getting them just to stay with Raider for a while. And Piqueras obviously is a huge talent and does not get done on the last lap, that kid. Does not get done by anyone on the last lap. If you're in a scrap with him on the last lap, you're probably coming off second best. He's got a bit of that knack to him. We talk about it sometimes with the David Alonso and stuff. Obviously, he's not on that level at the moment, but when he does get in a scrap on the last lap, he rarely loses it. But this was a tidy little race. A bit of a shout out for my compatriot, Jacob Rulson, who started, I want to say, about ninth, I think, actually. Did a long lap and finished ninth. So he looked good this weekend. It was nice to see with his injuries pre-season and stuff like that. See the kid on the pace, because I definitely think he's good enough to be running in the top 5. I mean, in the last laps, the Adrian Fernandez, Yamanaka, Furusato group, Pini was in there as well. Made up a lot of ground in the last lap on the guys in second and third, but I think it's because they were scrapping and they knew they had they sort of just needed to try and outfox one another, didn't they? Before this gets shit and boring, let's call it. When's the next one? We're off to Le Mans next. I've not even done a Le Mans video with all the shit footage I got last year. All right, we're off to Le Mans. On the 9th to the 11th, so we do have a weekend off once again. Well, we'll see you on that one. Bye.